to Bloody Good Horror.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new stupendous episode of Bloody Good Horror. My name's Eric, and I'll be your host for this evening, where we will be reviewing Dario Argento's Deep Red. This movie came out in 1974, 76? 76. I'm going to be fully honest with you. I am not sure if any of us were alive when this came out. Maybe Casey, question mark?
It was like a year old.
You were 1 year old. Got it. Did you see this when it came out?
No,
Okay.
I missed it.
In theaters.
Yeah, he flew to Italy.
My name's
Yeah,
Eric.
me and Dario were tight back then.
Mama, I want to see the Italian movie. Take me to it.
Joe, did you actually sing the children's song in this movie?
Were there lyrics? I thought it was just...
I have no idea. Anyway, I'm Eric. I'll be your host for this evening. Joining me tonight, first up, he is in the Corona Death City Extraordinaire, New York City. Please welcome John Schnars.
Eric, it's a global pandemic.
John, I only have...
Literally could be any of us.
Yeah, John, but you live in a cage with like 1 billion people.
Well, yeah, 1 billion is a slight exaggeration, but otherwise it is like a cage, yes.
Yeah, you have nowhere to run. How do you feel?
I can run somewhere. I'll just run into another person.
With coronavirus, exactly.
Yeah.
Next up on the show, coming to us from Chicago, he's living out in the burbs, man. He all he's got to do is just put a nice little some turrets around his property, and he's good to go. Please welcome Joe to the show.
Incorrect. Actually, they're treating most of the patients at the hospital like 3 miles from here.
Oh, bummer, dude.
Get it over the wind.
Yeah. And last up, joining us tonight from Indiana, he seems pretty chill about all of it. Please welcome Casey to the show.
Hello, and we do have 6 cases.
6,
In-
yeah.
Coronavirus.
In the state? Or
In the state.
Okay.
That's it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot, I think.
I don't know. I feel like this
There's
is
not
that
many people in Indiana.
that scene from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory where Charlie admits he only opened up one wrapper. And everyone's like, what? One? Can't even do the math of that, you dumb brat.
Yeah. John, you know what you could do while you're holed up because of the death virus? You could watch Shudder.
Oh, I was going to say download Shudder and use the promo code BGH.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
No, that's...
Hundo. Yeah, so we're here tonight to talk about Deep Red. Let's get right to it. Joe, what are we drinking tonight?
Beer guts.
Hey, what's up, kids? We're drinking beers. Deep Red. Movie by that Dario Argento there, fella. And in honor of his crimson blood and all the magic he's got going, I picked a beer from the fine folks out at Carton Brewing. They're in the Atlantic Highlands, New Jersey. A beautiful state. And this beer is their Red Rye Returning. Yeah, it's a good one, John. If you can get your hands on it, wholeheartedly recommend it. It's a rye ale, or rye beer, as the kids call it. So what that means is, a good amount of malt in there, but balanced pretty well with a good punch of hops. One of my favorite styles. There's a handful of ones out there. I think Arrogant Bastard, if I remember right, is one that probably a lot of folks know and a good representation. Carton, great. Everything they put out, and unfortunately we don't get them here in the Midwest, but if you're out east, especially in John's neck of the woods, when you're not on lockdown, you should definitely check out their stuff because everything they do is great. This one comes in at about 6.5% alcohol, so not super high, but enough that maybe it can kill some of them germs and running around in your system. What else we got here? Cartonbrewing.com is their website. They even got a nice little video about the brewing process of this one up there. So check out the website, and if you can find it, check out the beer.
Love it. Thank you
Thanks,
for
man.
that, Joe.
Can I give Joe a quick beer story?
Sure.
Yeah,
It was,
buddy.
it was amazing. We had a office happy hour. So we moved into a new office Monday. Yeah, yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. And they sent me out to do the beer run for the happy hour that we were just kind of gonna do in the office. Get
Right.
I get like 4 6-packs, bring them back. There was a new 6-point beer that I hadn't seen in the big cans, like in the pounders. And I'm like, all right, guy, gotta pick this up, take it back. There's only 4 of them. All 4 go immediately. People pop them open, start drinking them, and everyone's kind of looking around like, huh, okay. Look at the can, 12%.
Oof.
Ooh.
People were legit looking at me like I was trying to roofie them. It was yeah, it was interesting.
I
I had
mean-
one though. It's delightful.
Yeah, I miss 6 Point. We get their stuff out here, but not like the smaller releases, and I don't really buy
Yeah.
too much also because it's like shipping halfway across the country. But they're good people.
No, they do good work. Yeah, I think it was called Atomic Resolution. I could look it up, but I'm not going to.
Joe.
Nah, don't bother. I don't care.
Joe, do you like my old style hat? I got to bend down to
I-
see it.
I do, yeah. That's a Chicago classic.
Did you ever
Not-
see the movie Drinking Buddies?
Oh my God, it's awful. It's unwatchable. You
Yeah.
know where that was filmed?
know what it
John,
is?
you probably know this.
You know what
but,
it is, Joe?
Revolution. It was all filmed there.
Oh, yeah.
I
You
didn't
know what it
that.
is, Joe? It's very mumbly, so I understand your
Yeah.
feelings on it. And it doesn't seem to have much of a point. However, one of the dudes in the movie is wearing this exact hat, and I was like, that hat's really cool. So I looked it up on eBay, and some dude was like, hey, I just found a case of these in a warehouse. I have no idea what to do with them, so I'm selling them. And then I bought it.
Huh.
And now,
Yeah, old style, very big here in Chicago. And yeah, the brewery that they filmed that at, Revolution, it's right here.
so mumbly.
It's a bit much.
Yeah. All right, guys. It's time. Let's take a quick break and review Deep Red.
This is it, Senator. Your big breaking TV. From the prime time. Main feature.
John, we should mention that why we're doing Deep Red. We decided to do some staff picks.
Yeah, well, for what are we calling it? Seclusion month or
Sure.
or pandemic
Well,
month?
Yeah.
We'll get to that.
Side note: we may not be going to the theater as much in the next couple weeks, just to hedge our bets a little bit. But we decided to do some staff picks, and I was kind of poking through Shudder, and I found Deep Red. This was a movie I've always wanted to see. I've seen a lot of the early Argento stuff. I went through like a college I need to see all the classics kind of thing, and I saw a lot of Argento, a lot of Fulci stuff, but I've never seen Deep Red, and I'm like, this is like the staff picks for me are like the perfect chance to just see something I've never, you know what I mean? That thing in your shame pile that you've never checked out before.
That's-
So
That's the whole point of the staff pick.
exactly. So that's what we're doing here tonight. Here, the other thing about that, John, is that if I pick a movie that I love, what I learned is that there's a chance that you guys all hate it, and then I hate all of you. So it's better if I
Well, we
just
would also make fun of you. So
Yeah,
that's
sure.
a
Which is
risk you run.
not ideal.
Not even about the movie. Like I would just call you fat and
Yeah.
weird. names.
So it's nice to just pick something I haven't seen, John. And I don't have skin. I don't have skin in the game that way. You know what I'm saying?
I didn't like this movie, Eric. Fatty.
John, on that note, please bring us the word of the day.
Eric, today's word, condensation.
Ooh.
Condensation. Condensation, water which collects as droplets on a cold surface when humid air is in contact with it. It's also the conversion of a vapor or gas into a liquid. Condensation comes to us from, they say, the late Latin condensare, which
Oh.
means press close together.
Sounds hot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Did a little.
There
did a
you
little
go.
Condensation at Spooktoberfest, John, if I remember right. After a couple of Harvey Wallbangers.
Oh, Joe.
What's a Harvey?
If I-
What's a Harvey Wallbanger?
Oh, it's a drink, Eric. Nothing loosens lips or legs like a couple of Harvey Wallbangers.
Oh my god, what's in it? That sounds
no
great.
idea.
Sounds right up my alley.
Rupees.
Yeah, it's some of that beer that I had the other day, and then you throw some roofies in there. I think. No, I don't know that I've ever had one, but I do know that it is a drink.
Yeah, I don't think I ever have either.
Okay.
I remember it being a thing when I was younger.
I
right?
thought
Like, it was
this
always-
I thought this was something that actually happened at the meetup that I'm just now learning about.
No, it's vodka, orange juice, and Gialliano. I don't know what that is.
Ooh, how appropriate though for
Yeah.
Gialliano
Yeah.
sounds
I know.
very
Maybe I should start switching over to like cocktail of the week.
yeah. No.
Sheldon used to do that for Sophistical.
yeah, that's it's
Not familiar with it.
It's not really. All right, John. Tell me about Monsieur. That's French. Tell me about Dario Argento and Deep Red.
I mean,
How do you say Mister in Italian?
Yeah, I knew you were gonna ask me that, and I'm not. It's not
It's
gonna come to
me,
me.
Dario.
Spaghetti.
No, it'll come to me when I stop thinking about it. You should probably do more of the background on Argento. So I'm looking at his filmography here because the thing I was curious about is where this came. So we've now covered. This is off the top of my head, I think it's like the 5th or 6th Argento film we've covered on the show. He's up there in terms of most films covered on the podcast.
Yeah. So just the brief background, from what I'm familiar with, is that like in the late 60s, early 70s, there was this whole Italian subgenre of really in the beginning they were mystery thrillers. They got the nickname giallo, which comes from I believe gialli, which is yellow in Italian. Something like that. I'm listening.
I was gonna ask, like, you guys always say, and I'm like, is that like the
So-
producer or something? Like, who the fuck is this Giallo guy?
There was this series of mystery, like murder mystery novels published in Italy, and they all had yellow covers. They were very like cheap, like lurid kind of like mystery novels. So the films sort of borrowed plots from them. I'm not even they may have been there may have been some adaptations directly, but it was in that spirit, and that's why the films got nicknamed giallo. In the beginning, so I've seen some of the early Argento. Cat o' Nine Tails is one of his early ones.
Yeah, that's
For-
number 2. Crystal
yeah.
Plumage is the first.
The
at least
bird,
for
the bird of the crystal plumage. Four Flies on Gray Velvet, I think it's called.
Mm-hmm.
What's interesting about the early ones is like, and Joe, this will like be relevant to our discussion when we kind of really get into it. Joe's gonna like this. Like, they were much more mystery thriller in the beginning, and Deep Red is looked at as one of the big inflection points for a lot of reasons. One, for the violence and like the horror aspects of it being really brought into it more and amped up, and also just like this crazy bananas visual style that Argento had that then influenced all the filmmakers around him. He got increasingly crazy. Suspiria, and then like there was a follow-up to this called Tenebrae, which is a lot more, even more violent. But Deep Red is looked at as one of the best examples of the genre. Also, like I said, an inflection point where it really starts leaning much harder towards horror. And then his contemporary, of course, was Lucio Fulci, who did a lot of similar movies, but like I would call a Fulci movie like an Argento movie on PCP or something. It's the only way. Like Fulci was off on his own shit, but like, yeah. So Deep Red there's a deep historical significance to this film. I've just never seen it, so here we are.
Yeah. I don't think you just said this, but this comes immediately before Suspiria in his filmography. It's Argento's 5th film. Suspiria is the next, and Suspiria. I mean, we've covered it. We've covered it and the remake. That's truly like that's when you're fully in horror. I mean, I think it still gets kind of. I don't know. There's a Venn diagram with giallo, but to me, that's much more of a horror film. Whereas this is like very much a murder mystery type of experience. The background, the story is that you have the film opens with a medium, I guess let's call her. So there's like they're doing this presentation. There is a scientist, a psychiatrist, I think, and he's presenting this medium. The medium goes into somewhat of a trance and then starts talking about how there's someone in the audience who has evil thoughts and is going to do evil things. That medium is immediately, next scene, murdered in a very sort of typical or like generic giallo murder sequence, and so that then sets off the rest of the film and this murder mystery. What is probably most amusing to me, at least, is that the quote unquote detective, the main character trying to solve this murder, is actually a jazz pianist, a British jazz pianist living in Rome, Marcus. He just happens to live above the woman who's killed first, and he then takes it upon himself to solve these murders. The police are also somewhat trying to solve them, but they seem, wholly incompetent. He, meanwhile, is just unraveling this thing.
By the
very
way,
quickly.
when you say he, let it be known going forward that when you say he, you mean tiny Italian Paul McCartney.
Well, no, his name's David Hemmings.
No, it's not.
He is British.
It's tiny Italian British Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
The doctor guy also looked like one of the Gibb brothers from the Bee Gees,
Yes.
right? Like we all
Yes,
thought.
yeah.
Well, but like a fatter one.
Well,
I couldn't tell if he
never-
was a Gibb or like a Fraser Crane stand-in.
It's interesting to know that though, because, and something that we'll talk about is that what they did with these movies was, Italy's a very small market. And if you shoot a film in Italian, like your possibility, especially at the time, right? We just had a foreign film with subtitles win Best Picture, and like people in America are losing their minds because they're like, subtitles, foreigners, what? So like, picture how bad it was 50 years ago or 40
Dad?
years ago, right? Dad. Like their thought was, we want to get this distributed in America. It's got to be in English. So they would shoot in English with Italian actors, and if they had to, because the accents, either the accents were so bad, or I've read that some of them couldn't even speak English and they would just phonetically read lines, which is amazing. They would basically just redub with English actors. They may have dubbed over this lead guy, but just watching him, you can tell he's more spot on than anybody else in the movie.
Yeah, well, I mean, most of it is in English. It does look like they did a dub, but it looks like they were mostly speaking in English for the most part. I do think, to your point, Eric, some of these folks might have just been saying what they were being told to say, but yeah, he is what he is. He's fine. He partners with a muckraking journalist. I don't know, maybe muckraking's too strong. She's a
Ooh.
journalist. She's definitely trying to mix it up.
She's raking.
She's not afraid to get her hands dirty, is what I would say. And so they're trying to unwind this thing. There are several other folks who are related both to the investigation. Basically, the path of the murderer is somewhat circuitous. Like the second person killed, or maybe it's the third person, is a woman who wrote a book like kind of a while ago called House of the Screaming Child that essentially sort of explains part of the backstory of where the murder is coming from.
Joe, as John says this out loud, are you with me? And this is like totally new information to you.
Well, I was actually just thinking, like, I think they assumed that we read that book before watching this movie. This fictitious book. Like, we already have that under our belts, so we know a lot of things.
There are definitely, it's not that there's leaps of logic, it's just that they don't, I don't know, they mention something once in a super offhanded way, but then it's like a pivotal part of the film.
Yeah. Or not at all. Or they just don't mention it at all.
I was going to say, even if you're like paying attention, it doesn't always follow exact linear logic. Yeah, I mean, look, like the film plays out but it follows a lot of the plot points that you expect, the tropes that you expect. If you've seen a giallo film before, even if you've seen the sort of more modern versions of this type of film that films that are paying homage to this type of film, it's the kind of you're not going to be in for a lot of surprises. But that, to Eric's point earlier, like this comes at essentially the height of when these films were establishing really what the genre was. So it's interesting to see in that regard. But I don't know. I mean, the only other things I think worth mentioning, it's a goblin. The goblin folk. What do we call them? The band Goblin does the score.
Generally, what you call a group of musicians playing music. Yeah.
Well, if you told me it was one guy who just called himself Goblin, I would have been okay.
I mean, I would call it really intense 70s porno music.
Yeah, well,
we should spend some time on it, because to me this was one of the best, but also one of the weirdest of those scores. I don't know. So
yeah. I mean, honestly, the best piece of music in the whole movie is the theme that runs over the like open and the intro, and I don't think runs again in the whole movie.
Yeah.
All right.
And I'm pretty sure that's the only track you can find like on Spotify and stuff like that. That's
Yeah.
thrown in with all the best of.
Yeah, we can get into Goblin because I have a lot of Goblin thoughts. Casey, what'd you think?
First off, this movie made me sad. My musical background, you know how close I was to being a jazz pianist / detective.
I know.
It could have been big.
/ architect.
I'd never seen this movie either. I've seen a lot of Argento films, a lot of them because of the show. I saw some before it. I'd never seen Deep Red. I've always been curious about it. I like the. Must say I was more intrigued by the original Italian title, Profondo Rosso, which is what you'll find it under with when you're looking at the Goblin soundtracks, stuff like that. This was a movie kind of blew me away. It was kind of fucking nuts overall. Pardon my French. It just gets more and more bizarre as it goes, but I enjoy it. We've had a long conversation over this. It's not necessarily the writing or the plot, but man, the filmmaking that's going in it and the way it's put together, the way it looks and the way it all comes together is just kind of really cool. I did have some hard times tracking. I'll let Joe get into it too. He posted on Slack a little bit earlier this morning talking about a key element of the movie, and I had the same problems tracking on that as he did. So we get to a location of this movie, I'm like, why are we here? But I went with it and it was fun. So
yeah, that's the funny thing
perfect.
is I've seen enough of these movies where I make zero attempt to make sense of them while I'm watching them. I'm just basically waiting for the music to pick up because then I know someone's gonna die.
Exactly, and that's the way it is with this movie. I was just kind of along for the ride, but I really liked what I saw and the way it came together. It's pretty trippy.
Yeah, Joe, you should really check out Cat O' Nine Tails, which is basically this, but 10 times more convoluted and none of the cool set pieces.
Oh, wow. Count me out.
Joe, what do you think of this?
Yeah, I've seen a handful of other Argento movies, and I honestly haven't been a big fan, so I didn't have super high expectations for this one, and they were met by all accounts. It's just I fully appreciate people being into his stuff, and I get it. I thought the kills and kind of the visuals were really great, but at the end of the day, like I can't follow it, and I don't care to follow it, and you know the dialogue is like almost unintelligible, and like I don't have any history with it, so stepping into his movies as like I think I was like mid-30s when I watched the first one, like it just doesn't hit home for me, and this one is really no exception. Same thing with the whole with the Goblin, like they just don't do it for me, like all that prog rock stuff is
Joe,
just not my bag.
Have you ever seen Opera?
I don't know if I saw that
I only
one.
say that because there's entire scenes during the finale of Opera set to Iron Maiden songs just blaring.
Oh, I have seen. Is that the one with 2 Minutes to Midnight? Because I have seen that. Who? Jennifer.
No, that's no, the one with Jennifer Connelly, right? That's Phenomena.
Okay, that one I've seen, and obviously Suspiria, and I think probably a couple others. Maybe I did see Opera. I don't know. But in any case, like it's not my bag. I fully appreciate, as we're talking about over email, like I appreciate everything you guys are saying. It's not a movie where I'm like, I don't understand how anyone could like this. Like I get it. It's just it does not like connect with me in any sort of way.
John.
I am probably in between Joe and Casey in that I would say I'm happy I watched this. I and you can go back and listen to some of our older episodes to kind of get my opinions, but I've like walked away from some Argento films thinking the man doesn't know how a camera works. Like,
well, let's not forget that years ago we reviewed Mother of Tears, which is nigh unwatchable.
I think that was the first one I watched when I was a listener, and yeah, I kind of had the same reaction. And I should say, I don't mean to cut you off, John, but like, in no way was like I annoyed that I watched this or like angry at the end. Like, I agree. Like, I'm happy I watched it. Like, it's a piece of horror history, but it's just wasn't for me.
Yeah, I mean, Dracula 3D. We did that for the show. I'm pretty sure
that was the one with is Dracula 3D the one with the giant CG praying mantis?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Affirmative. I mean, it's fucking Dracula. Like, what you would think you can't screw it up too bad, but it's fucking crazy. I don't know. This this was a movie that I guess having now seen, I get it. I sort of get Argento in a way that even something like Suspiria, which I appreciate, I don't know that I love. Um, this I don't love this either necessarily, but I sort of see what he's doing. I have an appreciation for it in a different way. So I'm happy I watched it. Um, I I also like that you're kind of getting the genre maybe only 80% baked at this point. Like they haven't necessarily sorted everything, and so you see it maybe in a rawer form. Not fully raw. You're 75. There's certainly been others, but yeah, I don't know. So I liked it. For me, I would say the biggest thing that it drags in a couple spots. I think they could have tightened it up. I think there's probably something like 40 minutes between, I think it's the second and third kill sequence. And it's not that like I just need nothing but kill sequences, but there is a level of like the storytelling in between. It gets a little flat. I don't know. So yeah, the scenery is really interesting. I mean, we can talk about just an Italian filmmaker shooting Italy in the 70s. Definitely has strong opinions about Italy. I think you see that in the way that the police are portrayed, and just the way that people sort of go about their lives. There's casual child abuse. If anyone wants to, get into that sequence.
It's really the best kind, right? The casual.
Casual child abuse received casually by everyone who witnesses it.
Yeah.
Well, including the girl who.
Yeah. She's like,
Like,
oh, that's my
she's kind
dad.
of into it for some reason.
That's
She
my
might be a
dad.
demon, so it's
Yeah.
unclear.
The whole deal with that whole thing, I have no idea what was happening with their relationship there.
Eric, I just want to tell you, Opera available on Amazon Prime that I am currently downloading. So I'll report back next week.
You'll probably hate me, but I mean, it's, I don't know, it's a lot more 80s. Like, I think that's, I don't know, this movie is mega 70s.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it because I knew 100% I knew what I was getting coming into this. I'm a pretty big fan of Tenebrae. Although I saw it, like, I went through this phase, like I was saying, in college where I was sort of discovering the online horror community, and this was early 2000s, and at the time, people were really starting to gather in large numbers, and you could go on message boards and be like, guys, you'd see all these other people who'd seen all these amazing movies, and you kind of wanted to keep up, and people could offer suggestions for cult classics to check out, and it was right around the time when companies started putting all this old stuff out on DVD, and some of Argento's movies were the first things I remember. Like, I remember buying a 2 Anchor Bay double disc of Tenebrae and Deep Red, and there definitely for me was like this excitement in discovering this stuff, because if you grew up like going to American video stores in the 80s and 90s and you never saw anything like this, and then suddenly you witness this, it's like, what the hell am I watching? And I think, like, John, you brought up a really interesting point over email about the way that especially a normie, but even just a modern horror fan who's never been exposed to this stuff, strong possibility that even they find it completely bewildering, right? But I think that to a certain generation of horror fans who really discovering this stuff felt, I don't know if dangerous is a word, but a little bit, right? Like it's like the year 2000 version of the deep web. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, you watch this, you feel like you're taking drugs.
Yeah.
And I mean that as a modern viewer, with the context.
And drugs are great, so that's awesome.
Yeah.
But like,
no.
So I'm actually like with Joe on the fact that I really cared nothing about this plot. I couldn't even, half the stuff you said, John, I don't even remember in any way. Like, you could have made all that up.
There's a couple other turns too.
But it's
you're just like, what?
It's partially because I just kind of turned my brain off because I know what I'm getting. Like, there just so many of them are completely incomprehensible. But what you get here is Argento, to me, is like, you can feel him breaking boundaries in this movie. And maybe breaking boundaries in ways that don't make any sense. But that's part of the appeal of these early Argento films, is like, he's experimenting. Weird uses of music, right? The music's really intense to begin with, because Goblin, especially this time, like, they became really known for their 80s synth scores, and there's definite synth here, but it's very, like, I joke about it being 70s porny, but there's just some aggressive ass like bass guitar happening, and like you know, like it's
It's
super
very 70s like prog rock, like Yes and like
Yeah.
original Genesis and like that whole thing. Like it's
porny.
huge.
And it'll
Huge.
just
Well-
and it'll just like, I love the way he uses music because it's so aggressive. It's like a,
Mhm.
you know, an American slasher movie. You got a character walking down a hallway being stalked, and it's like ding 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 ding. That's Family Guy, but you know what I'm trying to say. Like it'll be these very subtle little music cues. In this movie, maybe a dozen times in this movie, a character is creeping down a hallway being stalked by a killer, and you hear and it's just like
Yeah.
slamming in the background. And but
It's so loud.
what I love
Yeah.
is that it makes you feel crazy. And like it's literally, if I don't, it might have been the same year. I think Suspiria came out in '76 or maybe '78.
It was 77,
But
at
Su-
least according to Wikipedia.
So like a year
yeah.
after this, Suspiria is really like an experiment in that concept for an entire movie with no plot. Like nothing happens in Suspiria except loud music blaring with colored lights, and it's a beloved classic because of how disorienting it is, right? And you can see him. What's cool about Deep Red, seeing it for the first time, you see him experimenting with some of these things that then made Suspiria such a revered classic. I don't even love Suspiria because I think it has a lot of the same problems, but his visual touch in this movie is so interesting, and I think it's really evident, especially in these early scenes. I'm in love with this weird little filthy like Italian corner that they shot on with this diner, like this diner that they set up to look like this painting, and like this beautiful classical Italian sculpture giant in the background. And then, but you contrast that with like the cheesy 70s decor, right? And so you got classical architecture, really cheesy 70s stuff. Everything's dirty for some reason. Like I don't know if Italy is just as dirty or if he just scouted filthy locations, but everywhere just looked disgusting.
I don't know if it looked disgusting so much as
don't-
like old worldy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and I mean, I think I actually like that because
Oh, I love it. Just visually,
Well-
it's everything is interesting to look at in this movie, and that's what Argento excels at.
yeah, and I guess what I was going for is more that I don't know if it's actually intentional or if it's something that we now sitting in whatever 2020 watching this sort of read into the film a little bit, but that's how Italy is that way. Like it's like, I mean, I haven't been there in
Oh,
7
yeah.
years, but
Look,
like
largely, I don't think that stuff specifically, right? I mean, he's just riffing with the visuals that he lives with, right? This is the stuff he
Yeah.
sees every day. But I think my point is looking back at it from an American lens in 2020, when you combine that with the weird dubbing and stuff, it's like there's this great kitsch value to these Argento films that is really fascinating to watch. And I love this shit. I love weird old
Yeah.
movies that shouldn't exist. You know what I mean?
It's a valid point. Like, I mean, of all my complaints about it, like those points still keep it entertaining, which is why, like, at the end of the day, it's like an hour and 40 or something. Like, I didn't feel like I wasn't annoyed at the end where I've been with some other movies that we've watched that I don't like. I feel like this movie, like, John, you probably know this bar, like in the city you go in and it's a little bit hipstery, and there's like a random like obscure horror movie playing on like the TVs in there. I feel like this movie and ones like it are perfect settings for that. Like this is a great one to
Sure.
have on in the corner, not being able to hear any of the dialogue or know what's going on,
Yeah.
but just like weird shit happening.
And
Like this is
Yeah.
that
Here,
movie.
and here's the beauty of this movie is that you can zone out. All you got to do when you hear a goblin start fucking, then you run in the room to see what's about to happen. And they'll give you like a 2-minute warning. You'll get like a 2-minute music build up to the murder. It's perfect. But the first murder in this movie is stunning. Like again, and
yeah.
it's shot in that little square thing, and like the guy's down on the ground, and the way that it's cut, and she slams through the window, and it's like he has this very interesting stilted way of shooting violence that makes it seem, even though the effects are like rudimentary, it seems so visceral and real. And it's like I have trouble quantifying exactly what it is, except
Well,
he definitely loves these extreme close-ups of like rending flesh.
yeah, they're not. It's weird because they're theatrical,
Yeah.
the deaths, but they're not over the top in the the manner of killing is like stabbing. It's knife go in.
It's just
In this
really
case,
it's just really
a lot of hatchet.
it's
or
a lot of
butcher
hacking, a
knives.
lot really
Yeah.
aggressive.
You see, I don't know if I'd agree with. Like, I feel like the thing I liked about it was the fact that they are fairly creative. Like, The
Oh,
first
yeah.
kill, like she actually gets like thrown on a window pane, and like
Oh yeah, well, that's fair.
it's not where I feel like a lot of 70s movies and even beyond like stab, like, and that's it. And it's like, if I agree with you guys that if this movie was set in modern times and the kills weren't as creative, like it would have been unwatchable. Like
Yeah.
then I would have been like angry. But like this hatchet, and then she goes through the window, and then later there's the thing with the elevator, and like that's how someone gets
Oh, the
killed. Or the guy
elevator
gets
is
the guy
very
gets
good.
dragged by the truck.
Dude,
Like
that shit was
nobody
crazy.
just gets stabbed,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah,
Well,
like that's my
fair,
favorite
fair
part
art,
with
fair.
these is the effects though, because they are cheesy for today's standards, but they're all practical. And like that scene with the professor or the doctor or whatever when he was taken out, like all he hit every ledge that was in his little library. They put his teeth on it.
It was basically the curb stomping scene from American History.
That's
X.
exactly what I
Exactly.
thought of when it was
Yeah.
happening. I'm
I
like,
mean,
oof.
what I love is like the way I would describe, and it's been a while since I've like seen an older Argento film with fresh eyes, and I don't really go back to the ones I love. I used to go back to them a lot. I don't as much anymore. He has what I would describe like a painterly eye. It's like he is looking to create still images that look like paintings, and it's why my favorite Argento movie might be Inferno, because it's the visuals of Suspiria with like 0.2% more plot. So it's like just enough where you can kind of follow what's going on. But he just like really leans into these little tableaus and the way that like the framing of this woman after she falls through the window, right? Like you're saying, John, is very theatrical. Like her head cocked to the side and her arms are draped over. Like it reminds me of that scene in Suspiria, the opening murder where she crashes through the stained glass
Yeah.
down,
Yeah.
like he just
I-
he almost feel like he starts from that death moment and works backwards. Like, how do I get to this image of this person looking like this?
Where
Yeah.
did you all land on the burning bathtub or bathtub scalding? I could not get over the fact that how the hell is the water hot enough
Dude.
coming out of the faucet?
I
First of
know.
all,
Well.
but it also is instant. Like basically they must have had dry
Yeah.
ice on the set, right? But it's like the second when the cop goes there later, he turns it on and instant the room is filled with smoke from dry ice or a smoke
And
machine
the
or
door is
something.
wide open.
The dad was quite jealous to see that much hot water in one apartment.
I know.
I also that scene is really where I was like, all right, I don't know if I can do this anymore, because the
It's
the
the
professor
part where it
doctor
kind
or
of
whatever
slows
it is,
down.
like the woman asks like, what are you doing? And he leaves and he's like, I'm finding out who the murderer is. Like, what?
Yeah, I actually
Well,
really
she asked.
I really loved his cheesy little kind of acting flair there where he's like trying to be it's almost a moment where he's trying to be Columbo or something. He's trying to be really clever and explain his process, but then it makes no sense what he's doing.
Well,
At
also
all.
the reveal makes no sense because all it says is like what, like the killer
Yeah.
or something, or like
Yeah.
it doesn't give anything away.
No, that I was confused about that part where it said it literally says he is or it was. Or
Yeah,
something like that.
I
exactly.
mean,
It's like-
honestly, to me, the like fatal flaw of the whole investigation to me, and again, like we understand that searching for
Can't wait to
logic,
hear where you're going with this,
searching
'cause
for
there's
logic in
one
these
that's-
Argento things is like definitely a fool's errand. But this just stuck out to me. I see no reason why this guy feels such a need. Like I understand he saw this woman die, but like, why? I don't know why he cares so much. And also, he does the worst thing.
He's a pianist.
He does the
He
worst.
plays the piano.
He does
Well,
the
his
worst
days are
thing.
free. He plays at night, like
He does the worst thing you could ever do when you witness a murder. Is there's no other witnesses besides him. He runs up into the house and immediately starts putting his hands in the blood and all over the body. And
Yeah.
the cops only give it a glancing moment of like, "Did you do this? No. Oh, okay, fine."
No, they were like, he's a pianist.
Yes.
Don't worry about it.
Oh, good news,
Also,
guys. There's a pianist here. We probably don't have to work on this. He's
Like,
got it.
yeah, guys, he's like
My
a quarter
favorite,
scale. He's like a quarter scale replica of Paul McCartney. He probably didn't do it.
Yeah. My favorite jazz pianist skill in this movie is the fact that he could scale the outside of a mansion
Hmm.
fairly easy.
So that kind of Casey was alluding to it at the beginning. I had no idea why they were in this mansion. Like
Yeah, me
I did
too, either.
not follow that.
Well, I think it was like when she. Jesus Christ. One of the people
Yeah.
gives them an address. Like, go talk to this person. Then it's just like, I think they're just following the
Yeah.
breadcrumbs, right?
I guess, but like 25% of the movie takes place there, and I assumed it was something that I missed in like a line or something. But I'm like, why the fuck do we keep going back to this house?
I feel like the
Yeah.
the mansion part is where he really starts abusing the long scenes set to goblin songs that don't actually go anywhere. That like
Oh.
literally it becomes like an SNL parody at some point because it just keeps happening.
Yeah. There's the scene where he's knocking through the wall and finding the secret room,
Dude.
but it
Yeah.
takes
It's like
5 minutes.
This wall scene is like if in the Shawshank Redemption we watched Andy bore that hole in real time.
Yeah. I loved when he was picking the paint off the wall with his fingernails. I was
like-
like, first of all, get something else to do that,
And
dude.
like,
There's rocks
do we
outside.
need to see all of this in an hour and
Yeah.
45?
Like, all right, we got
By-
40 minutes left. This is what we're filling it.
By the way, this breaks the cardinal rule, Eric rule of cinema, which is that it's an hour and 45 minutes, and I can tell you, it does not need to be that long.
Yeah, yeah. No, well, that to me was the biggest thing is you could have tightened this up a fair bit, lost absolutely nothing, and maybe gained a fair bit. Actually. I mean,
Right.
it would have made more sense.
I believe
Or
they
at
call
least
that.
like replace some of these scenes with like plot points
Yeah.
that would have made it like coherent.
And again, like it's not really why we're here, but also
Yeah.
it's actually very interesting looking back critically on this movie for the first time.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
we watch him like pick apart the wall from the outside for 10 minutes, but like we don't bother filling in like why exactly the killer, like what her motive was. Like,
Or who the corpse in the house was.
well, that was the I guess we're getting into like spoiler now, but like that
Yeah.
was the father, right? Like,
Yeah, that we found out.
Yeah.
I didn't put that together until we talked about it on Slack today. But
So I'm now just making this connection, and I'm looking it up. But we watched the movie Pieces.
Yeah.
Many years ago.
Weirdly
Is that
similar.
explicitly a homage or like because it does seem to me there's a lot of overlap between
I hadn't
this film and
actually
that film.
I hadn't actually thought about that, but that's yeah.
in terms of even like who the killer ends up being, if I remember.
I mean, I'm gonna be
correctly.
real with you though. If you put both of those movies in front of me and were like, "Which one do you want to watch again?" I would 100% watch Pieces again.
Oh,
yeah.
No, not even.
sure.
I actually look back very fondly on Pieces.
If only for
I-
this, if only for the scene where they're carrying the glass plate, the guy crashes through.
No, that movie's crazy. I actually don't know if it was even supposed to be funny at the time, but
How do we, if you want to talk
it's
about
good.
bad dubbing, how do we feel about the performance of the curly-haired best friend? And I'm specifically wondering what we think of his drunk acting.
Oh Lord.
well,
it's tough.
he's definitely been drunk once or twice in his life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but then I was
Well,
like, then I was
I
like,
think he's been in a room with someone who has.
because I was thinking like, this is the '70s. This guy might have just been drunk.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not
Or
out of the realm of
worse,
possibilities.
yeah.
He is so that actor is Gabriele Lavia, and he is himself a film and theater director.
Oh.
So I mean, he could have just been like an Argento.
They're
you know,
like, if you
dude.
if you're into like really skinny Euro dudes in like '70s clothing, this
Yeah.
movie might do it
With
for
big
you.
hair.
Who isn't? He
the
is
Italian
also.
horse shack, right? Like that's.
We should.
He's also in Inferno. He's
Yeah.
in,
I'm like, I hesitate to even talk about this scene, but there's this scene where Joe knows what I'm talking about. He's looking for his drunk best friend. I don't even remember why, because who the hell can tell you? But
he was a witness. The drunk
right,
best friend
that's
was
right.
also
So he
a witness.
finds him in the apartment of a companion. Now you have to understand that this is a movie shot in the '70s. It's an Italian movie. I can't begin to tell you where like transgender politics were in 1970s Italy. But this character answers the door. I can't tell what the movie's trying to exactly portray to me here, but the thing that really threw me off is they dub her. First of all, I think it might have been a woman actress.
It was played by a woman. Yeah,
Okay,
I looked it up.
so
Was?
Yeah.
yes, but this is what threw me off was that they for this American
I shouldn't
release.
say it too.
Stop
I'm
it.
sorry. That's
I
not,
know,
no,
I
stop
would
it.
love.
I
would-
am.
No, no,
I'm
I-
looking this up to make sure you're not.
I would
confusing
no, I
her with another
100%, I
character.
100% had that thought during the movie because what throws you off is that what I'd love to do is hear the original voice because they basically just voice her with like Tom Atkins' voice. They voice her with like a Midwestern dad's voice, and so
Thrill
it's like
me.
totally off-putting because you're just like and again like I'm not sure that a person in the 70s would even have the language to, you know what I mean? Like this is very, it feels a little weird and exploitative, especially when you talk about like the guy's ashamed of his relationship with this person, and it's like there's a lot of icky stuff in this movie in general, I feel like.
See, I was actually going to go in somewhat the other direction and say I thought this was for the 70s. Again, putting it into context, I thought it was handled fine because, like, it's not, to your point, it's actually not commented on in any way.
Well,
It's not,
yeah,
like,
it's more
looked
about the
down on
guy.
negatively.
The guy has like shame about it, but the best friend's just kind of like, okay, dude.
Yeah.
The
He's
be-
like,
Yeah.
"Nah, hey, guy.
Yeah,
That's-
I actually agree with John. Like, I thought it was kind of interesting that like they didn't. I mean, they make a big deal about
Yeah.
it, but it's not like a
I
huge.
will.
plot
I
point.
will say
If-
it's considerably more progressive than in the first 5 minutes when they make a joke about "quote unquote" raping a virgin.
Oh, there's
Uh,
that,
that was a
and then
little rough.
there's also what is the scene when he first meets the newspaper writer, and he's like, pretty much the whole thing is like, don't give me this woman stuff. Like, it's a known fact that men are stronger.
Oh,
So, well, no, it was
like-
like he goes. His exact line was because I know this because Sophie watched this morning, and texted me about this exact line. The guy's like, because she thought it was hilarious. The guy's like, "Don't get me started on that women's lib stuff. I can't even deal with that." Like,
no, but it was ridiculous because that scene goes on for another 5 minutes where they arm wrestle.
Oh, the
Except
arm
they call it
the-
Indian wrestling.
dude,
Yeah.
this guy is the worst fake arm wrestling actor
I know.
possible.
Yeah, yeah. I honest to God don't believe that I'm gonna say boyfriend, but like the gay character was played by a woman.
No, it was
I'm, like, trying to
100%. It was
research this right now.
100% played by a woman who they just put like a cheap fake mustache on.
That's the craziest thing I've heard all day. It's blowing my mind right
Well,
Really,
yeah,
John?
John,
There's
maybe
a-
Tom Atkins'
now.
voice was
Maybe it was
throwing
the
you off.
voice. Maybe that's what threw me off. But I was just like, oh, they
No, because
you
in
know.
my head, right? Like, I mean, that's the weird dissonance thing when you're watching these dubbed actors, is like it's kind of close, but not really. And the second she opened her mouth, I'm like, that is not anywhere near that person's voice.
I don't know. It's just weird because if it's why the whole I don't know. None of it makes any sense now. But okay, very good.
Hey, Eric, you work in a place where news happens, reporters and stuff like that. Do they ever grab you by the hair as you walk by to get your attention?
You know, it was I kind of liked that actress because she's super intense, and it's interesting.
yeah.
The movie, I feel like, wants you to think she's the killer. Like they straight up, they throw a scene in the very beginning where they show who's presumably the killer putting on like really intense eyeliner, and then immediately cut to the reporter who has the same eyeliner. That to me was like,
She's the same eyeliner, but her eyes are different colors. That was like the giveaway.
Yeah.
at least for me.
John, you think I'm noticing the eye color? I'm not.
They were very.
But
I mean,
then,
you
but
get a
they
super strong
definitely
close-
they still want you to think it might be her later on when she shows up at the mansion.
Yo, I was
According
not
to,
even trying to know who the killer was.
yeah, no,
because it was
100%.
So fucking weird.
100%.
Yeah.
According to the IMDb Bizzles, those hands were actually Dario Argento's.
Ooh.
Yeah, and the hands were like always a staple of these films. There was always sort of like disembodied killer hands with gloves on.
Geraldine Hooper, John, is the male companion in this movie. You might remember her from Emmanuel in Soho.
Ooh. Was that
Mm,
before she went to
Didn't,
space?
sensual desires?
Yeah, what
John.
Joe? What year was Emmanuel in Soho?
81.
Okay.
So, yeah, it was.
Because they've been making those movies for like 50 years.
Yeah, yeah. It was one of the first, I assume.
Any other? Oh, we definitely have to mention the creepy steampunky clockwork doll, and that's
Oh Jesus!
yeah.
So I had to bow out last night and finish it today, but like I wish I had stopped before this doll thing because that was pretty much the last thing I saw before having to turn the lights out. That I feel like is the one of the enduring visuals of this film, and like for good reason, like because it's not just the creepy doll, it's the way he shoots it and the way it's like creepy leg walking at the. It's like really messed up. It's a really memorable visual.
Oh yeah, that was my out loud oh shit moment of this movie because that was like you'd said you could tune out and the music starts picking up and they had the scene before that where you see the shadow move behind that white wall or whatever it was, and then he's turning around staring at that puppet. It was the last thing in the
Yeah.
world I expected to come out of there.
It probably shocked me the most outside of like that first kill.
It was weird as fuck. That's for sure.
What the hell was that
It's
noise?
Casey's dog.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right. Anything else before we wrap up here?
I would say for people who want to watch an Argento but haven't, this is like high, this would be high on my list of like starter Argento films.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
one and Tenebrae are very similar. I think Tenebrae is better, but I also I have some nostalgia for it, so that's probably clouding my opinion on it. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's a
And
little.
is this
I think it's a
sorry.
little tighter. Is all I was gonna say.
is this considered to be more giallo than horror though,
I
or
would
are
say
they
so.
just kind of bleed together?
I mean, this is the point where I think they start really bleeding together.
Because, like to John's point about, this being a good starter Argento. Because I remember when I first started out doing the blogging and all this stuff right before we started BGH, and I was trying to educate myself more, like Eric was in college and going through classics and stuff. Heard about giallo, never seen it, tried to look it up. I started with Bird with the Crystal Plumage, and I was more lost than I would have been in this. I think this is a better start to kind of get a feel for it.
Yeah, honestly, those early ones are brutal. Like, I would not
Yeah.
watch those early ones unless you really love this or you're just into the academic aspect of it. But personally, I find them like kind of unwatchable. Yeah. All right. It's going to do it, guys. For Deep Red, or as Casey pointed out, Profondo Rosso.
Are we doing recommendations, or are we just not
Yeah.
bothering?
Yeah, Joe. I was about to say,
Oh.
Joe, what did you think?
Oh, all right. That's not the order we usually go in.
Sorry,
Eric, all right?
dude. You
I realize
Joe,
maybe we've sold out now, and like this is what we have to do.
Joe, trust tree, okay?
Is this what the overlords say we have to do now, Eric? You have to do that first, and then.
Great. I like that I'm getting it from own members of my show. Joe, what'd you think of this?
Unless you're some completist, which I assume you would have seen this already, I would not bother. No.
John.
I'll say I gave my recommendation essentially. If you're looking to get into Argento, you can start here. This is a good starting place. But otherwise,
Yeah.
Casey.
I would say watch it, but there are better Argento movies out there.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to see a bunch of Argento, I would definitely put this in there. I do like this. I would start with this and then Suspiria, because those are kind of the two different kinds of movies he made over the next decade. See which one you like more, and then based on that, there's a thread you can follow. Or you don't like either, and then you just, move on with your life, Joe.
Hint, it'll be Suspiria.
But yeah,
that
it
you'll
was
like
exactly
better.
what I expected, just wild visuals and goblin
We're all-
stuff.
We're all gonna be quarantined, so eventually you got to get to this sometime.
We're going to have plenty of
you have
time.
to watch
yeah,
them all.
plenty of time. All right, guys, it's going to do it for Deep Red. Let's take a quick break and do some fan mail.
A showdown is about to begin between the soldiers of the day and the army of the night. You can't kill me. James Woods. My baby. John Carpenter's Vampires. Opens everywhere October 30th.
Hey, I'm Joe Bob Briggs, and you're listening to the Bloody Good Horror Podcast.
Send feedback to info@bloodygoodhorror.com or on Twitter using hashtag AskBGH. Join Patreon to get back episodes and much more. Patreon.com/bloodygoodhorror.
And we're back. John Schnars.
Eric.
As we mentioned at the top of the show, probably going to take a break from the theater for a few weeks, let this whole, Death Fires thing die down, see how that goes. But we got lots of stuff in the hopper. You might even say lots of stuff on Shudder.com, John. But I think
yeah.
I believe we picked out a movie for next week.
Yeah, I think we're gonna do Extraordinary,
Love it.
which is streamable.
And what's that
It's
about?
the sequel to Ordinary, right?
Yeah. They were gonna go Ordinary 2, but this is slightly more
Electric Boogaloo.
It is. Oh, sorry. I didn't realize you were coming to me. This is actually. It does have a small theatrical run. But yeah, it's stars. Oh, God damn it! No,
What's his
blanking.
name from Last Man on Earth?
Yes, exactly. That guy.
Will Smith.
Casey. Yeah. No, Will Arnett.
Will Arnett.
Will-
There you go.
I love
No,
that
Will
guy.
Forte.
No, Will Forte.
Will Forte.
Will Forte. Yeah.
Pret-a-porter.
I
Will
love
Forte.
Will Forte. Is it a comedy?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Comedy-ish, I believe.
Word. Sounds good. Other stuff going on at Bloody Good Horror. This Sunday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, Tweet with BGH. You can follow the Tweet with BGH Twitter account and watch along with Sophie and the gang as they watch Shark Night 3D. Probably just in 2D though, John, if I had to guess.
All the D's.
Is anybody doing the 3D anymore? We haven't seen one in a long time.
I feel
No,
like.
I mean-
Was that Onward? Did that come out in 3D?
I'm pretty sure my theater still has them for some stuff, but I actively avoid them. Like I refuse to go to a 3D movie. As soon as somebody pointed out to me that they're never bright enough, I couldn't unsee it, and it's like maddening because they.
I mean,
like,
I know. Oh, sorry. Go
No, I
ahead.
was gonna say like the ideal is you're supposed to have these special projectors that can project brighter because the 3D filters like dampen the light or something, and it's like awful. They're unwatchable.
Now, the last Star Wars, I know I saw in 3D.
Oh, really?
Did you really? Wow.
John, do you think I'm gonna
Woof.
fucking half-ass it? It's the end of a.
You were trying to pony up $30 for your ticket.
I don't live in New York City.
Well, John, I paid
Ah,
$30 to see The Invisible Man, but that's only because I forgot to go once.
Jesus.
Were you here for that story last week?
No, no.
You should listen to it. It's fun. You know what else is going on, John?
Mm.
I have a review on bloodygoodhorror.com.
I saw it,
It's-
didn't believe it, thought we'd been hacked, and
It's
went
li-
about my day.
It's live.
I
now.
deleted it just because I didn't believe it. Like this isn't Eric.
Hilarious. I got a review on the site. I got a few more in the can, but yeah, you can go now on bloodygoodhorror.com. Check out my review of 1981's Road Games, John. It's now live on the site. A young Jamie Lee Curtis and a middle-aged, pockmarked Stacy Keach. You know that old Hollywood look where like they're probably not as old as you think they are because they probably smoked 4 packs of cigarettes a day.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that. They got a little like, you know, just that smoky face going on. Joe knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean,
I know about Smoky Face.
Stacy Keach was definitely arrested at one point for like cocaine possession, so I assume he's got more than just like cigars in his system.
Yeah, check that out. But anyway, so I've been going on this kind of like 80s movie odyssey recently. I watched like a whole bunch of stuff in the last 3 weeks, and I actually, John, brace yourself. I recorded an Eric show on all this stuff.
Again, if I hear it,
It's
I'll
done.
believe
I
it.
started the edit. I have new music I made just for the Eric show, John. It's been, I'm going to say, a year and a half. It's possible it's been 2 years since I did an Eric show.
no.
The last one I did, I think. I definitely
Game of Thrones finale?
I did one after I finished reading Game of Thrones.
Mm.
But then I also did one like a year-end one, the year that like Halloween came out and Joe Bob came out. I did like a year wrap-up, and that was 2018, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So it might have been 2 years, John.
Yeesh.
But yeah, so if you're interested in the Eric Show, that's a show where I talk into a microphone while I drive to work about things, and it's just me. That's the beauty of the Eric Show, John. If you're a patron, when you sign up to become a patron, you get at any level, you get a feed that you can pop right into your podcast thing, and it gets you all our spin-off shows. So Sophisticult Cinema, Behold an Electric Terror, which is Jason's show about TV shows, and then also when Casey does Cinema Fromage episodes, when Cece does Something Red shows. So also the let's call it biennially Eric shows. That's that right term.
Whenever Eric feels like doing them, really.
So there you go, Joe. You just look like you're holding back right there, buddy.
No, absolutely not. I'm very excited to hear what the Eric Show has to offer. It's been a while.
Well, get excited, Joe. It's coming at you. It should be tomorrow. I could probably get it up tomorrow. All right, guys. info@bloodygoodhorror.com is the email address. We got one email this week on a familiar topic. Josh says, with the impending coronavirus outbreak, what is your go-to shelter-in-place food?
We've really been trying to answer this in real time. The hard part for us is it's not just about what my wife and I are going to eat, but we have to figure out what's something that is shelf stable. And I don't mean like, we're not worried about like months or something.
That kids will eat.
Yeah, that the kids will eat. And realistically, where we've landed is we have a shitload of pasta, and like we'll do shit to like gussy it up for ourselves, and they'll just get fucking pasta with butter because it's the only thing.
Dude, my
they will
daughter
eat
loves that.
reliably.
Yeah, that's a good call. Yeah. Or just boxes of chicken and a biscuit. Like
I mean, the
that
beauty
or-
is you still have power, right? So what I'm going with, because like I have a weird diet. I eat like mostly fresh food, which isn't really going to work in a quarantine situation. But I was just figuring this out today. I could probably live off like tuna for like at least a little while because it's totally shelf stable. I can stock up on mayo, which I do anyway, always, John, just in case of an emergency. And, I think that would work.
Huh.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I ate banana and peanut butter today. 'Cause I was home,
Delicious.
and it was delicious.
Delicious.
I think I would get sick of tuna within like 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, no, I would too, but I'm just trying to survive here in this scenario, Joe.
You can do lots of stuff with tuna though. You know, you can do tuna salad. You can make a salad with tuna on it. The hard part is like like you can't have salad greens after like a week. You know, I mean it's
That's true, John.
So,
well, you let me know how you feel in a week. Also,
I'll come back at
for
you.
everyone but Schnars, when the inevitable shortage of toilet paper occurs, how will you go on? Magazines, books, old socks? We know Schnars lives that bidet life. That's from Josh. We know we stocked up on like toilet paper and diapers and stuff. I feel like that's anything involving poo. It's the number one thing you need to have.
I wasn't following what was going on in Australia. People were there was like a run on toilet paper.
Oh yeah, people are fighting over.
Somebody in Slack today said there was a fight. Yeah.
Huh. I mean, we have a power washer, so I think we're fine.
I've got the mismatched sock basket. I'm good.
Joe,
It's true. Like, do we still have running water? Like, you just go in there, hose
Take
yourself
a
down.
shower.
I don't think we're gonna get to
Joe,
true sort of end of the world
Just-
situations. It's just gonna be mildly annoying.
Joe, those power washers are very strong. Just promise me you're going to do it at an angle. Do not aim that thing straight up your dingus, or you're going to have a real problem.
Eric, I know how to use the power washer. All right. There's different levels. I got different attachments. I got it all.
Do you got like a sprinkler setting?
There's one that's like literally just like a pinhole, and
Yeah,
like
don't do that.
I've like cut through concrete with that thing. It is spend hours fooling around with those.
I'm genuinely
It's a lot of
concerned
fun.
for your butthole health.
Yeah.
Yeah. info@bloodygoodhorror.com. What's on Twitter, guys?
Oh, tweets are on Twitter, man. We got tons of tweets. At BG Horror is our Twitter handle. Every week we post up questions we call for questions using the hashtag AskBGH. We got a gaggle of them here. First up from Markov, or at Markov. He asks, what's your favorite Italian or European horror movie? Anyone?
Wait, classic? Does it have to be classic?
Favorite?
Or can it be modern?
Fulci's
No, just says horror movie. Yeah.
Fulci's Zombie is very high up for me. And no, John?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's fun, but it's basically like watching one of the George Romero movies if George Romero was on PCP.
I don't,
as
honestly,
previously
I
described.
used to feel like it was kind of bootleg, but every time I watch it, I appreciate it more.
It's not that it's bootleg. It's like this is the film where the shark and the zombie fight, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like that's what I mean. Like it's a fucking zombie movie where a shark and a zombie fight, which is cool. I'm not saying
John.
it's not.
Whatever. Also, probably say Inferno is my favorite Argento movie.
I can't remember. We were talking about it recently, but Goodnight Mommy, that one just really stuck with me. If
Isn't
we're talking,
that-
that's more recent.
I thought that was
obviously, not
French. I thought that was French.
classic. German.
Oh, he said
German.
Europe. He said European.
He said European.
Got
Yeah,
it.
or European. He said.
All right,
Yeah.
John, calm yourself.
We did a show on it. I know not everybody was super into it, but still, I love Tombs of the Blind Dead.
Oh yeah.
Spain, big fan.
I thought you were gonna go Troll Hunter, Joe. I mean, that's
Oof, I'm still upset with.
I just
most of
remember,
them.
honestly, I remember two things from Tombs of the Blind Dead, and I had totally forgotten until you just said that. I remember the zombies on the zombie horses,
Yeah.
and I remember them jumping off of a train going like 2.5 miles an hour.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, that happened. Both of those things.
I was a big fan of From Beyond. I believe it was.
Yeah.
I've seen that.
It was.
It's
It was the same person that did Pieces, right?
I don't know if it was the same, but yeah, it's in that same ballpark for sure.
I may be thinking of the wrong one. From Beyond was a Jeffrey Combs movie. There was a different one.
Well, yeah, that's what the Stuart Gordon. Is
Yeah.
that the one you're mentioning?
I'm sorry. There was another one though that was in the 70s, right around Pieces.
Hmm.
Great story, I know.
Why don't you sit these next few plays out, Casey? All right.
Get some
Next up-
get some Gatorade.
Yeah, refuel. Next up from Diana, that's at Diank. She asks, two-part Ask BGH, will you be reviewing James Wan's Giallo Malignant in August? Malignant?
Yes.
Malignant is a word.
Holy shit, Joe!
Holy Jesus, you got to sit this one out now.
Even for you,
Oh,
Joe,
Lord.
that was impressive.
Malignant?
You know what? You know what I feel like you need to do, Joe. I feel like your problem is you try to pronounce things letter by letter instead of taking
Yeah.
a second to read the word all the way through.
Oh yeah, no, I don't ever read ahead. Like it's a
Malignant.
I'll tell you,
I
the
will pronounce this word as like.
not to get completely off topic, but when I was in college, I was dating a Jewish girl from Long Island, and I went to her family's house for Passover. And you have to go around the room reading parts of the Passover story. It literally, I thought I was going to throw up. I'd never been so nervous in my life because her entire family was there. And her fuck-faced sister, who I hope is rotting in hell right now,
my God.
sat next to me laughing the entire time because she knew how nervous I was.
Was it in Hebrew or like were you reading?
No, it was English, but still. Like,
At least you
I'm
know.
not, I'm not like reading in public. Like it freaks me the fuck out.
I love it.
At least you don't hold on to things, though.
Well, whatever. She was a fucking asshole. Are we doing this Malignant movie? I haven't heard anything about it.
No idea, but
I haven't either, but
if it's
you know.
James Wan, I'm sure it'll be in theater, so it's a possibility. As
Rain.
long as I'm allowed out of my apartment, then maybe we'll do
Yeah.
it when it comes out.
If we're still here. Then part two, Fuck, Marry, Kill, Deep Red, Suspiria, Tenebrae. Also shameless plug for my podcast, Giallo of the Month Club, where I talk about things Giallo, including Deep Red and Tenebrae. So F, Marry, Kill, Deep Red, Suspiria, Tenebrae.
F. Mary Kill. I don't like these, if I'm being honest.
No, I think I'd kill myself.
I would definitely kill. I would definitely kill Deep Red at this point, and I think I would marry. What are those? Sorry, what are the options?
Suspiria and
Suspiria.
Tenebrae. Jesus,
Oh, I would marry
Eric.
Tenebrae.
Yeah, I never saw that, so I guess I would kill that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Suspiria, I disliked immensely, so I would. Wait, no, I guess I would. I don't.
This
You
reminded me.
fucking-
I should shout this website out. So because this person reminded me talking about their podcast. So like I got pretty much my entire base education on these movies from this website by this guy who lives in the UK, and it's still online. I remember reading this site in like 2001. It's called Hysteria Lives. It's hysteria-lives.co.uk, and it's this guy who just has like reviews. It really started out as reviewing a giallo and old slashers, and like I don't even know if these reviews hold up nowadays, but I used to spend hours just reading through every review on this guy's site, and it gave me a lot of breadcrumbs to kind of go like seek some of this stuff out, and it's still online, so you can check it out.
All right, this next one is ridiculous with no preparation, so good luck. The Horror Mailman, that's at the Texas Giant 3. Besides Train to Busan, what is your top 3 South Korean horror films?
Top 3.
Yeah.
I couldn't
My-
tell you 3, but the host is awesome.
You're gonna have to give me a list, I guess. I can't
Yeah,
just like.
exactly. No, I would need some prep time. I'm sorry. The Texas Giant.
I'm pulling it up now. I mean, so the host is definitely up there. I saw The Devil. Very, very good. Is Thirst. Great film.
Thirst was alright.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm just like scrolling now through. I don't know.
Are they
I'm
all
trying-
by that same dude?
Not all. No. It's 2 different directors.
Eric, do they all look the same to you? Is that,
Joe,
is that
I just happen to know that
not
he.
cool?
I just happen to know that he directed a bunch of those, Joe.
All right.
I
I feel like
you go to a
Joe.
you are married to a Korean person.
Yeah, I was gonna say not to throw back to like 2008 BGH, but I would like to point out that I am married to a Korean person, Joe.
really, I don't see those things, so I didn't even
no,
realize.
I know.
Yeah.
I know that about you.
I feel like we're literally just reading movies from South Korea
Yeah,
and putting them up.
No, there's some good ones. There's some good ones. It's a good question. We probably could have prepped it ahead of time, but
Next up from our good friend Fuji Billy. Why was Deep Red released as Suspiria 2 in Japan? I'm so confused. And was Argento using all the glass as a symbol of the fragile veil of civility?
Oh, that sounds like something a professor might say. It must have been released afterwards, first of all, because this movie came out first, so that must have been a home video thing later on.
yeah, these things got so many different rando titles. I mean, if you go to Argento's page on Wikipedia, everything is like one title, and then it's Italian title, and then also released as X, Y, and Z.
Well,
You know,
that's kind of the amazing thing too. If you go down like the Italian horror rabbit hole, and you get down to like the real B movie stuff, like stuff by guys like Luigi Cozzi and Bruno Mattei and stuff.
Mhm.
Apparently, at least at the time, like American copyright laws just were not applied there at all. Like there was no way to enforce it, and so they would just release stuff as sequels to American movies a lot of times, which is why you get these like 10 different subtitles on some of these.
It's Troll 2.
Exactly. Yeah, well, yeah.
All-time classic. Yeah, I mean, the bird with the crystal plumage, aka gallery murders. Have you ever heard it called gallery murders? I don't know.
No.
So there you go.
All right. Next up from where the hell did I go? Thor's Hour of Thunder podcast. That's Library of Congress. Swine flu or bird flu?
I would say that
I feel like I remember the swine version being worse if you got it.
I also it just sounds scarier. Like the word swine is really severe, and so I always just like
Yeah.
from a branding standpoint, I always felt more afraid of swine flu.
That's one of your
dirty.
go-tos. That's one of your go-to if you want to slander someone. Yeah,
Yeah,
swine.
Swine. Joe, don't you have a good swine flu story?
I think it was one of the two, but yeah, I was coming back from my sister-in-law's wedding in Mexico, and we hadn't watched the news in like the entire week we were down there. And our layover was in Mexico City, and we get off, and everyone is wearing those masks, and we're like, "What the fuck is happening?" So at the time, I had a BlackBerry, and I Googled just Mexico City like illness, and the first thing that comes up is an article about how they're about to shut down the airport we're standing in.
Nice.
But we got home, and then my office made me like immediately turn around and go back home and work from home for 2 days just to make sure I wasn't going to murder everyone. And handed me a laptop bag, which was filled with a projector and no laptop. So,
Nice. That's awesome.
yeah, 2 extra days of vacation. Not too bad. All right, next up from our good buddy Attorney at Space. That's Space Lawyers Podcast. I believe that's Adam, correct?
Yes,
What's your
sir.
favorite horror film with a color shade in the title, and why is it Deep Blue Sea?
Another one I need time to prep, but yeah.
I mean, Green Room.
Yeah,
Boom.
Easy. Feels like a layup.
doesn't need to be a horror movie. I will say the first pornographic film I ever saw was at my buddy's house, where he found his dad's, and it was titled Blue Interview, which it's always stuck with me through the years.
I bet, because it makes what? What is it about?
I actually
Joe
found it on-
remembers the plot, so he
I-
can tell you.
well, it was an interview. I actually looked it up while we were talking. A beautiful blonde learns about Hollywood during her blue interview.
Mm.
I just remember the first scene was I assume they were married, going at it in an office, and the cleanup process that the poor woman went through when someone was like coming in and the gentleman realized that they had to stop what they were doing was just offensive. Like
There was so
you know.
much plot back then. Like just
There
like
was a lot. I'll be honest, not to get too deep, but I appreciate the plot. Like I like a good story. I don't care for just scene. Like I like to
This is more than I ever cared to know about.
I'm like,
your
I'm
consumption.
relatively sure we had this exact same conversation 2 weeks ago on the show.
Oh, more than once. Yeah, this comes up more than the Eric show is produced.
I wish Joe would stop telling us about his porn consumption.
Well, we had to read about yours, John.
That's true.
Yeah, fair.
John told his whole college, but he doesn't want to tell us about it.
But if anyone's interested, 1983's Blue Interview, directed by Ted Russell.
Pseudonym.
Maybe not.
I have a similar story about finding a video with just the most insane plot you could ever mention, but maybe I'll save that for a future Eric show.
Yeah, I would love to sit in.
Eric show : the Blue Interview.
I remember there was a theme song too. I'd like to make this a blue interview.
Stop it.
Yeah, 100%.
I used to believe that.
Nice day for a blue interview.
I'm gonna find it after this and send it to you, John. Next up from PS Trophy Hunter, that's our good buddy on Slack, not that BG Joe or whatever the hell. Hey BGH, there's a goat race coming up around me. Spring goat race, Backfest. When I bet on a goat, should I bet off of best name or the goat that looks closest to Black Phillip?
Oh yeah, I mean, the few times there's a pretty famous like horse racing track in our like hometown or near there. I would just always bet whatever name sounded accidentally the dirtiest.
Yeah, I would say go with name, because if a goat really looks like Black Phillip and has Black Phillip powers, it's not at a fucking like
Right.
race
Yeah.
doing tricks for the man.
It's off somewhere trying to form a coven.
Yeah. All right, we got two more. Next up from our friend Roger, that's at Robale. Who is more excited for the Billie Eilish concert Friday, my 10-year-old or me?
Honestly, I like her. I like that album a lot. It's
Yeah,
pretty good.
I'd be in for that.
Yeah.
And if he didn't do it on command, can Joe sing some Billie Eilish? I'll be honest, not my thing. I don't care for just the mumbling and nonsense. I don't get the appeal. Good for you, whatever makes you happy, but not my cup of tea.
Interesting.
That's it. That's what I got.
I just
Nailed it.
I love the story. That guy produced that album like in his bedroom.
He's her brother, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting story, and I like the production on it.
Yeah, it shows. Last up from Horror Fan 4129.
You're
That's
such
our buddy Andy.
Dick.
When the world runs out of poo tickets, toilet paper, what will happen? Will society crumble? Will cats and dogs start living together? Is it the end of days?
The poo tickets took me a second. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I like that.
I don't know. We've always known them as shit tickets, so
Oh,
Shit
wow.
tickets. Shit
dear
pickle.
God.
So much more graphic.
yeah.
Shit tickets.
I honestly, now I'm getting nervous because I'm like, how much toilet paper do I have in this house? I don't even know. I probably should have been thinking about this.
Do you have diapers, John? Because you have small children, like 12 of them.
That's true. Dude, I have so many wet wipes. You wouldn't even fucking believe
Yeah.
it.
That
We
is-
over-ordered accidentally.
That's also very
Oh.
important in times like these.
Yeah, no. Well, and guess what? Guess who's going to be using them if we run out of toilet paper? Boom.
They're a nice treat every once in a
I
while,
know.
John, even if you're
Yeah.
not quarantined.
Treat yourself, John.
Yeah.
I see an uptick in the sales of Axe body spray.
Yeah. Well, don't forget, Joe. John's got the bidet, so
It's true. Do you?
Guys, I don't have a bidet. I'm not against having one. It's just don't have one.
That's true. Like nobody's going for the bidets right now. Like that's where it's at. Like there's no toilet
Yeah.
paper, but no one's thinking like if I just put it in a bidet, like
Yeah.
it's self-sustaining.
I'm
You'd be in
into
great
I'm
shape.
I'm into it. My wife's like, no, I don't understand.
I love it.
Although it was like very small, recently potty trained children, I feel like the last thing you need to do is put any kind of device near there because it's going to go bad real quick.
Yeah.
That's true. Valid point.
Any
That's it
kind
for tweets though.
Any kind of
What do you-
device that at the simple press of a button would shoot water out of the toilet seems like you're just asking for trouble with a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
Yeah. So guys, it's gonna do it. Stay tuned. Find out what we're doing next week. We'll post to socials and Slack. We got a couple of more video picks coming up in a row. Don't forget to check us out, patreon.com/bloodygoodhorror. You can get a live stream of the show. You can join on Slack. We've had a bunch of new Slack members. I keep saying that, but it's like every week we're getting new Slack members, new people participating in the community. And what better thing to do, John, while you're quarantined inside than hang out on Slack all day and play F, Marry, Kill with every food item known to man, which seems to be happening a lot lately.
Yeah, I mean, when you have 3 children to worry about, it's hard to do that all day, but otherwise, definitely.
You know, you just got to actually be dedicated to it, John.
Yeah. Look at Eric's never been more productive. He's got 2 kids running around.
It's true.
They haven't
Sure.
they haven't seen Daddy in a week, but I mean, the site's never had more content.
There you go. I hate you. Okay, yeah, that's going to do it, guys, for Deep Red. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll talk to you soon.
See you. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye.